What if the moments you think are harmless are actually shaping your baby's emotional security for life? One of the biggest parenting mistakes starts with a sentence almost every adult believes. They're just a baby. They won't remember this. That sounds harmless. But here's the scary part. Your baby may not remember the moment consciously, but their brain remembers the feeling. Every reaction, every tone, every expression, every moment of comfort or disconnection. Your baby is learning what the world feels like before they ever learn what words mean. And most parents never realize this is happening. Think about it. Have you ever picked up your baby while feeling stressed, but tried to act normal? You say, "It's okay," but your body is tense. Your face is distracted. Your voice is rushed, and somehow your baby still reacts. They squirm. They stare at you differently. Sometimes they even start crying harder. Why? Because babies don't read language first. They read energy first. Long before a baby understands words like love, safe, or angry, they understand tone, facial expressions, eye contact, attention, emotional presence. That's their first language. And this is where many parents accidentally misunderstand babies. People think understanding only starts when talking starts, but emotional learning starts much earlier. A baby's brain is constantly asking questions like, "Am I safe? Will someone respond to me? Do my feelings matter? Is the world calm or stressful?" Not through logic, through patterns. Tiny patterns repeated every day. The way you look at them when they cry, the way you respond when they need comfort, the way the room feels when tension enters it. And no, this does not mean parents have to be perfect. That's impossible. Babies don't need perfection. They need connection. There's a huge difference, because even loving parents sometimes miss what babies are truly reacting to. For example, imagine your baby falls over and gets startled. Now watch how adults usually react. Some parents immediately laugh. Some panic loudly. Some get frustrated because it interrupted something. But a baby studies your reaction to decide how serious the moment is. Your face becomes their mirror. If you look calm and comforting, their nervous system slowly settles. If your energy feels irritated, cold, or emotionally absent, their stress stays activated longer. That's why babies often calm down simply from being held by someone emotionally regulated, not because the problem disappeared, because they borrowed someone else's sense of safety. And honestly, once you realize this, you start seeing everyday parenting moments completely differently. Even feeding time, diaper changes, bedtime. They're not just routines. They're emotional messages repeated over and over again. Messages like, "You matter, you're safe, I'm here," or "You're on your own." And the hardest part? Sometimes parents unintentionally send the second message while deeply loving their child. Not because they're bad parents, but because nobody taught them how emotionally aware babies really are. But there's one everyday habit parents do constantly that can make a baby feel emotionally invisible without realizing it. And most people are doing it dozens of times a day. A baby who stops crying is not always a baby who feels safe. Sometimes it's a baby who's learning nobody is coming. And that changes the way you hear crying completely. Because many parents were taught something dangerous without realizing it. If you pick them up too much, you'll spoil them. They're crying for attention. Let them cry it out. But think about this for a second. A baby cannot text you. They cannot explain what's wrong. They cannot calm themselves the way adults can. Crying is not manipulation. It's communication. It's the only language they have. When a baby cries, they're not saying, "How can I control my parents?" They're saying, "Something feels wrong. I need connection. I don't feel safe. Please find me." That's a completely different meaning. And honestly, most parents don't ignore cries because they don't care. Sometimes they're exhausted, overwhelmed, trying to cook, trying to work, trying not to fall apart themselves. This isn't about making parents feel guilty. It's about understanding what repeated emotional disconnection teaches a baby over time. Because the lesson isn't just, "Nobody picked me up." The deeper lesson becomes, "My feelings don't change anything." That's why this matters so much. Imagine this. It's 2 a.m. Your baby wakes up crying again. You're exhausted. Your whole body is tired. Maybe you wait longer this time, hoping they'll settle themselves. And eventually, the crying stops. Most people see that moment and think, finally, they learn to self-soothe. But sometimes what actually happened is much sadder. The baby stopped expecting comfort. That's the part nobody talks about. Babies are constantly building emotional expectations about the world. When comfort consistently arrives, they learn. When I'm distressed, someone helps me. That creates safety. But when cries are repeatedly ignored for long periods, especially without reassurance, some babies begin adapting differently. They conserve energy. They become quieter, less expressive. Not because they suddenly became emotionally stronger, but because their nervous system is adjusting to disconnection. And what makes this difficult is that emotionally disconnected babies can sometimes look easy. Quiet baby, independent baby, doesn't cry much. But emotionally healthy babies aren't defined by how little they need. They're defined by how safe they feel expressing needs. That changes everything. Now, obviously, no parent responds perfectly every single time. That's impossible. Sometimes babies cry while you're driving. Sometimes you genuinely cannot respond immediately. And that's okay. What shapes a child most is not one moment. It's the repeated emotional pattern, consistent warmth, consistent responsiveness, consistent repair. That's what teaches safety. And there's another important thing parents often miss. And babies don't only react to whether you respond. They react to how you respond. Because a rushed, irritated response can still feel emotionally cold. You can physically hold a baby while emotionally feeling far away. And babies sense that more than people realize. Which leads to another everyday habit that unintentionally hurts babies emotionally. Parents talking around them like they're not even there. One of the strangest things adults do around babies is act like they're not real people yet. We talk over them, around them, about them right in front of them. She's being so difficult today. He never lets us rest. She's too clingy. He's exhausting. And because babies can't answer back, people assume those words don't matter. But babies are listening long before they understand language. Not listening to vocabulary, listening to emotion, tone, facial expressions, energy, attention. A baby may not understand the sentence, "You're stressing me out," but they absolutely understand the feeling behind it. And that feeling lands somewhere deep. Think about a moment almost every parent has experienced. You're holding your baby while talking to another adult. Maybe you're tired, maybe frustrated, And without thinking, you say something like, "I haven't had a peaceful moment all day because of him." Everyone laughs, but your baby is staring directly at your face while you say it. That part matters, because babies constantly study the people caring for them. They look for emotional signals. Am I welcomed? Am I safe here? Do they enjoy me? Or am I a problem? And the answers don't come from words alone. They come from repeated emotional experiences. This is why babies often react differently to different people, even if they're being held the exact same way. One person feels emotionally warm, present, soft. Another feels distracted, cold, irritated, disconnected. Babies notice the difference immediately. And honestly, this section isn't about parents never feeling overwhelmed. Every parent feels overwhelmed sometimes. Parenting is exhausting. But there's a huge difference between "I'm having a hard moment" and repeatedly making a child feel like they are the hard moment. That emotional difference shapes how babies begin seeing themselves, even very early. Because babies slowly build identity through reflection. They discover who they are based on how people respond to them. If they consistently feel welcomed, they begin associating connection with safety. But if they repeatedly feel like an inconvenience, something quieter begins forming underneath. And sometimes it shows up in subtle ways parents don't notice. A baby becoming unusually withdrawn, less expressive, less eager to seek interaction, not because they stop needing connection, but because they're adapting to emotional distance. And here's something powerful most people never think about. Babies don't only need care, they need acknowledgement. That means eye contact, warm responses, being spoken to, not constantly spoken about. Even simple things matter more than people realize. Explaining what you're doing while changing them. Responding to their sounds like they matter. Using their name warmly. Including them emotionally in the moment. Those tiny interactions tell a baby, "You are seen. You are important. You belong here." And children who consistently feel emotionally seen often grow into adults who don't spend their whole lives begging for validation. That's how deep these small moments go. But in today's world, there's another problem: quietly stealing emotional connection from babies. And most parents are doing it every single day without noticing how painful it feels from a baby's perspective. One of the most painful things a baby can experience today doesn't look painful at all. It looks normal. A parent holding their baby with one arm and scrolling with the other. No yelling, no cruelty, no obvious neglect, just a face that keeps disappearing emotionally. And the reason this matters is heartbreaking. Babies are constantly searching for connection through faces. Your face is their emotional map. They study your eyes, your reactions, your smile, your attention. That's how they learn. Am I safe? Am I loved? Do I matter right now? Now think about how often this moment happens. Your baby looks at you. They make a sound. They smile. They reach toward you. And right when they try to connect, buzz, notification. You look down. Just 1 second. But for a baby, that second feels emotionally confusing. Because one moment they had your attention, and the next moment your face went blank. Your eyes disconnected. Your expression disappeared. Your energy shifted somewhere else. And babies notice that instantly. In fact, some studies on infant development found that when parents suddenly stop responding emotionally, babies become distressed very quickly. Not because they're dramatic, because connection is survival to them. Imagine your baby sitting in a high chair while you check your phone during feeding time. At first they smile at you. Then they wave their hands, make noises. Try again, but your attention stays on the screen. Eventually, something changes. Their energy drops. Sometimes they become fussier, sometimes quieter. And honestly, the quiet response is often the one people misunderstand most. Because silence doesn't always mean a baby is content. Sometimes it means they gave up trying to connect in that moment. And to be clear, this is not about parents never using phones. That's unrealistic. Parents work on phones, text family, handle emergencies, take breaks. This isn't about perfection. It's about emotional presence. Because babies don't measure love by how long you're physically near them. They measure it through responsiveness, through moments of shared attention, especially eye contact. That's why something as simple as fully looking at your baby while they babble matters more than most toys ever will. To a baby, eye contact says, "I see you. I'm with you. You matter right now." And when those moments happen consistently, babies build emotional security. But when interruptions happen constantly, something subtle starts happening. The baby competes with the phone for connection. And over time, that changes interaction patterns. Some babies become louder and more demanding because they're trying harder to regain attention. Others slowly become less expressive, less initiating, less emotionally animated. Not because they stopped wanting connection, but because they adapted to partial connection. And honestly, modern parenting makes this incredibly hard. Phones are designed to pull attention instantly. Even adults struggle resisting that pull. But babies don't understand why attention disappears. They only feel that it disappears. That's why tiny changes matter so much. Putting the phone down for 10 focused minutes, responding when they look at you, smiling back when they smile, letting feeding time feel emotionally warm instead of distracted. Those moments seem small to adults. To babies, they are everything, because emotional connection is built in tiny repetitions, not giant dramatic moments. And there's another thing adults do that seems harmless, but can feel deeply confusing and even scary for babies, especially when everyone around them is laughing. So far, we've talked about the quiet ways babies feel ignored, disconnected, or emotionally unseen without parents realizing it. But the next habit might be the most misunderstood of all, because many adults mistake a baby's fear for something funny. And what your baby feels in those moments can shape trust far more than people think. The moment most people think a baby is being difficult is usually the moment they are already overwhelmed. And it happens in almost every family gathering. Everyone is excited. Music is playing. People are talking loudly. Hands are reaching in to hold the baby. One person passes the baby to another, then another, then another, and at first, it looks harmless. Even cute. The baby is being loved, right? But inside that moment, something very different can be happening. Because babies don't process crowds the way adults do. They don't think, "This is a fun event." They think, "Everything is changing too fast. Too many faces, too many voices, too many hands, too many emotions happening at once." And there's one key thing most adults miss. A baby's nervous system has a limit. Once that limit is reached, they can't enjoy more stimulation. They start trying to cope. You might notice it before the crying even starts. The wide eyes, the stiff body, the turning away, the quiet stare. That's not them being shy. That's them signaling overload. But in many families, that signal gets ignored. People say, "Oh, she's fine. Let me hold him for a bit." Don't be like that. He needs to get used to people. And so the stimulation continues. More voices, more touching, more interaction. But instead of building comfort, it builds stress. Because what the baby actually needs in that moment is not more connection. It's regulation, familiarity, predictability, a calm, consistent presence. Sometimes just one trusted person holding them without passing them around can completely change how they feel. But when that doesn't happen, the baby starts showing stronger signals: fussiness, whining, turning their head away repeatedly, reaching back toward the parent they feel safest with. And then comes the moment most people recognize: crying. But what's important here is what the crying actually represents. It's not bad behavior. It's a nervous system saying, "I've had enough." Now imagine being that baby. You don't understand why you suddenly feel overwhelmed. You just know your body feels uncomfortable. Your heart rate is up. Everything is loud. Nothing feels predictable. And the only thing you want is the one person who feels familiar. This is why overstimulation matters so much. Because it doesn't just create a temporary meltdown. It can shape how a baby experiences social situations later. Whether gatherings feel safe or overwhelming, whether new people feel exciting or stressful. And here's the part that often surprises parents. Babies aren't meant to handle everything. They're meant to be protected from too much too soon. That protection isn't limiting them. It's what builds their sense of safety in the world. So when a baby starts showing that uncomfortable expression during a gathering, the tight face, the sudden silence, the turning away, that's not something to push through. It's something to listen to. Because that moment is a message. And once you start noticing that signal, you begin to see something even more subtle happening in babies during social moments. Something that reveals whether they feel safe or emotionally stretched too far. A baby doesn't need to be part of an argument to feel its impact. They just need to be in the same room. This is something most people underestimate. They think, "They're not listening. They don't understand. It's fine. They're just playing." But babies don't process conflict through words. They process it through atmosphere. Picture a normal home moment. A tired day, a stressed conversation, a small disagreement that slowly gets louder. The tone shifts, voices sharpen, silence feels heavier, movements become quicker, more tense, and the baby is there, nearby, just existing in the same emotional space. Now, here's what's happening inside that baby. They don't understand the topic of the argument, but they absolutely understand the emotional temperature of the room. Their body reacts before their mind has any explanation. Heart rate increases, breathing changes, muscles tighten slightly, eyes become more alert. It's not thinking, it's sensing. Because for a baby, the environment is communication. Not just words, energy, tone, tension. And this is why even quiet arguments can affect them deeply. A whisper filled with irritation. A cold silence after conflict. A frustrated sigh repeated again and again. To adults, these feel manageable. To a baby, they feel unpredictable. And unpredictability is what triggers stress in early development. Now think about a different moment. Same baby, same room, but calm voices, slow movements, soft expressio. You don't always need the perfect solution. Sometimes your calm voice, eye contact, or gentle hold is what teaches safety. And if you were distracted, stressed, or overwhelmed, come back softer. That reconnection teaches your baby trust more than the mistake ever harmed it. Slow down the small moments. Feeding, diaper changes, bedtime, these aren't just tasks. They're repeated emotional signals saying, "You're safe with me." Let connection lead, not pressure. You don't need to force calm or stop every cry instantly. Being steady beside your baby is often enough. Because in the end, babies don't build security from perfect parents. They build it from parents who keep showing up emotionally, again and again. You don't need to get this right every time. No parent does. There will be distracted moments, tired moments, imperfect reactions. But what your child remembers isn't a perfect version of you. It's the emotional pattern you return to again and again. Because children don't grow from flawless parenting. They grow from repaired moments, from warmth that comes back after distance. And even when you feel like you missed something, you can always come back softer. A calmer voice, a longer hug, a slower presence. That's where safety is built. Not in perfection, but in connection that keeps returning. So, if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Awareness changes everything. The moment you start noticing, you start shifting. And those small shifts matter more than you think. If this helped you see parenting a little differently, you can subscribe for more videos like this. And if you want, share in the comments what moment made you pause and reflect today. Because years from now, your child probably won't remember the toys you bought them, but their nervous system will remember how safe they felt with you.